Back once again on Cape Ann today with our, it feels like weekly conversation with Gloucester Police Chief Ed Connolly. How you
Always
doing,
a nice
Ed?
day.
Yeah, it's great to
Yeah,
have you back with us.
good to be here.
So I guess right off the top, summer is upon us. We're getting ready for Fiesta. We're sort of, it feels like we're finally on the other side of COVID thing. Large crowds are starting to gather again. They'll be up here for the summertime. How is our local police department dealing with everything, and how are you preparing?
So we've been preparing. Well, first of all, we are prepared, and but we've been preparing through our planning process. So Deputy Chief Joe Fitzgerald oversees the operations of Fiesta. Not that he's there every single day, but he comes up with a plan, works with the fire department and our local department, other departments in this area, including the sheriff's department, the state police, to come up with a excuse me, a staffing plan for Fiesta. And we also sit around and we talk about contingencies, weather contingencies. Certainly, we think about all different types of things, not to make anybody afraid. Just we consider what everybody considers when they're planning a mass event. Violence that could happen, and it's really kind of just dialing in those plans and making sure that our coordinations with our partners are all sort of ironed out, communication plans are ironed out, and that's where we're at now. And I feel good about his plan. I feel good about Fiesta coming back. I know I can feel it. I can feel the energy in the air that it's been gone for 2 years. And actually, this will only be my second Fiesta, believe it or not, because I came to Gloucester in April of 2019 and rolled into Fiesta that June. And then COVID hit. So this will be only my second Fiesta. So I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, you imagine if the weather's nice, it should be pretty banged out this year. So should be a good time. Because we actually spoke earlier this week with TJ Shimataro, the Gloucester Harbor Master, and he spoke often about how they're always liaisoning with you and the fire department, et cetera, to just sort of manage these events the best way possible.
Yeah, no, very true. I mean, we have a great relationship, not just with the Harbor Master's office, but I think the city managers of all the different departments, we're truly friends, even outside of work. So I think that really allows for great communication and great coordination. And I'm very fond of reminding people that most of my police department, 87%, born and raised, still lives in Gloucester. So if anybody knows how to manage Fiesta, it's the men and women of the Gloucester Police Department.
Yeah.
So, Chief, we sort of felt, since we have you here, that it would be kind of nice to touch upon some super difficult stuff, which thankfully this state does not see a lot of. Massachusetts has the lowest rate of gun deaths in this country, and it's ranked number 4 in the country for strict gun laws. But can you comment just as a chief of police in America about gun violence and I don't know, maybe bring it in locally, how you feel about this community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to gun violence, right? There's gun laws, there's mental health component, the aspect of it. I think it's not by chance that Massachusetts has such a low rate of gun violence. I think we have very reasonable laws on the books concerning how someone obtains a firearm, how someone gets licensed to obtain a firearm, their responsibilities for storing that firearm. I think these are, and you know what, it's kind of it is a local issue in the sense that our own John Rosenthal, who's a Gloucester resident, has been at the forefront of a lot of that. And I can't think of another person that's more knowledgeable about reasonable firearms laws, and he will tell you that he's a firearm owner himself, a Second Amendment person who believes in that, but also believes that we need to be thinking, reasonably and rationally and logically about how we sort of regulate the ownership of firearms. And I certainly think he's on the right path. I think a lot of people, I think the country's coming around. They realize that we need to have reasonable, thought out laws and regulations around the ownership and purchase of firearms. I'm not saying that's certainly not a panacea to solve the problem, because we also need to be thinking about how we are dealing with mental illness and treating people that are suffering from that, and also allowing for people to feel comfortable to come forward and to talk about someone they may know in their life that's acting in a way that's disturbing, and how we kind of work our way around those issues.
Mm. And I had read about school communities actually sending home literature with kids recommending with advice on how to store firearms. And is there any sort of local resource for people specifically for gun safety and also for how to appropriately store firearms? That kind of just the basics.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, there's a wealth of information on the internet for people in that sense. But KPN Sportsman's Club has an excellent program in firearm safety, and if I would encourage people to reach out to them if they have a firearm in their home and they want more information. I think there's definitely the classes they offer there are outstanding. I think they're top notch, and just general information about the safety of firearm storage. I think that's a good first step.
Mm.
Chief, another touchy subject with recent events has been protecting school children. And so we know that the Gloucester departments work closely with the school system here, the public school system, to provide extra security. Can you just sort of discuss how that came about and how, those officers that are in place at those schools and what their duties are once they're there?
Sure. Well, it's whenever there's an unfortunate incident, this comes to the front of people's minds, right? And it certainly elevates everybody's anxiety, especially if you have kids in, excuse me, kids in a school. You start thinking more about it, and but it's honestly something we think about all the time. This is something we do as part of our annual training. Lieutenant Mike Gossam is a instructor. We've sent other officers to become, sort of trainers. They're instructors, and you can use any number of acronyms: ALICE, ASHER, basically active shooter type training. And we provide that training annually to our school and the students. We also provide it to local businesses who request it at no cost to them. So this is something we plan for. And in addition to the planning aspect of it all, we, this is where I think school resource officers are important, and not for the reason that people are going to think, because right now, if you're hearing, there are people that could hear me say that and say like, well, it didn't help in Texas, didn't help in Florida, but that's not the reason. Isn't necessarily that the school resource officer is going to engage in a firefight with someone who's, coming into a school, though that would be, would happen if they were there and they encountered that person. The real value of a school resource officer is developing the relationship with the students. And I think people will be surprised to know that, in my experience, that students, if you have the right people, which we do with Pete Sutera and Mike Scola, and we'll hope to add a third one when the new school opens up, that they have such a great relationship with the kids, and that the kids feel very comfortable coming to them and sharing things that are making them worried. So if they're sharing information that they're worried about their friends, or worried about someone that they feel uncomfortable around, any number of things. And I think that's really the key. It's preventing these things from happening in the first place. And that goes to the school resource officers. It's why we do the things with the community impact unit, with kids, the Cops and Kids program. It's all about building that trusting relationship and keeping those communication paths open.
And actually, in the SRO, they do a lot during the summer too. There's the fishing trip, there's the gaming, of course. Are there any other programs or facets to that people might not know about?
So this summer, I think it just went up on our Facebook yesterday, Gloucester Police Facebook yesterday. We're going to be doing a lobster crate race.
That's so cool.
I'm having a difficult time even envisioning it, but I think it'll be very cool. And I think it just speaks to the heritage of this community. And it's again, another way for us just to develop that bond with the kids, because, kids grow older and they become adults, and then we start with a whole new generation of kids, and we just want to keep that going.
Yeah. Well, and we're looking forward to the next generation of Gloucester police force, right? So local people moving into the police force, perhaps.
Oh.
And on that note, we want to talk about women in policing. You were the first person that we heard say they can be a really positive force in the force, and actually implementing some of these changes that everyone's been so concerned about recently. Do you want to talk about that? By the way, I want to say it was kind of a headliner in the Police Chief magazine.
Sure.
Recently. There was a whole article about women in policing. So
a couple of things, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think women, on average, women bring a very different perspective. Like, I mean, we all bring different perspectives to our job and different ways of looking at things. But I think there's a true different perspective when it comes to a female police officer and how they approach the job. And I've seen that not just as chief, but also as a patrol officer working with women when I was a patrol officer in Chelsea, certainly. But I'm proud of my record. And when I was in chief in Manchester by the Sea, I hired first 2 full-time female police officers on that department, and I know for a fact that they're doing awesome over there right now, and that changes the culture in a better way, I think, especially in a department that's that small. Now, Manchester is not a civil service department, whereas Gloucester is. So I had a lot more leeway in terms of hiring in the process there than I do here. But I think the biggest challenge right now for us as law enforcement leaders is how do we recruit women into this field? It's become a difficult field for a lot of people. I mean, the number of people that are taking civil service exams to become police officers are at record lows right now, for a whole host of reasons. But it's also very difficult to recruit good, not just good candidates, but good female candidates, because I think there's a perception that most of what we do is like gunfighting. It's like we're in karate fights all day long, and there's shootouts everywhere, all that stuff. And it's like nothing could be further from the truth. The thing that cops do most is communicate, and it's the ability to. It's about having conversations with a whole host of people and solving their problems. And I think if we did a better job at trying to sell that aspect of the profession, I think we could recruit more women to be interested in taking on a job here in the police, in the law enforcement field. And that's the challenge.
Yeah. It's an interesting subject because we were actually going to ask about the numbers of recruits these days. Because I remember speaking with you when COVID's really sort of started to hit home around here about and there were some big national issues going on as well, right? These other factors that were leading to less and less people wanting to be police officers. So I just want to, how is staffing in Gloucester? How is morale? And I mean, are there any issues there at all?
Yeah, I think it's not just in Gloucester. It's really, I'm hearing it from chiefs all over the place. I'm hearing it from friends that work in the private sector that staffing all over. I'm sure you're probably seeing the same effects. It's been difficult to get people to take jobs, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know why, 100%. I will tell you that here in Gloucester, we have, I wouldn't say a significant staffing problem because, I mean, compared to other departments that are going on, but we have started to have what we call holdovers, where, you come into work, say you're coming into work 8 to 4, 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and there is openings on the next shift. There's a minimum number of officers we have on the street, which is 4 patrol officers at any given time. It can't fall below that. And we have to hire for overtime. And if we can't get someone to take the overtime, then we have to hold somebody over. So I come in and I say, like, you're not going home, you got to stay. So no one wants to be in that position. And we've had a handful of those on a weekly basis, but it's not at the level, like I said, it's not awful. And right now, there are some departments that are holding people over for triples. I know in this area, it's a real staffing issue, but I think the thing that we're dealing with is short term because we had a number of retirements at the beginning of the year all at once. And it takes about a year from the time you hire somebody to get them to a police academy, get them through the police academy, then have them go through what we call a field training officer program for about a month, and then finally hit the street and be able to replace that officer. So for us in Gloucester, it's not a problem of us hiring. It's just, we're just got a little lag in people in the academies. We have 4 officers that are in the police academy now. One will graduate in another 2 weeks, and then 3 will graduate in, I think in October.
So help is on the way. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So sell us on this job, Chief. Tell us why somebody should aspire to be in the Gloucester Police Force.
So I'll tell you why. This is what I tell people. When I have this conversation, I challenge everybody, think about something you did once in your life. Like, I don't know, maybe you were driving on a highway and you saw a car on fire and you pulled over and you helped that person and got them out of the car. Or, any maybe you were in a supermarket and someone passed out and you kind of went over and you held their head for a second, you called 911. Everybody has like 1 or 2 stories like that. I mean, and they tell them at cocktail parties or whatever. When you're a police officer, that's your job. That's what happens when you come into work almost every day. You're helping people. Those types of things are happening all the time. So if you want a job that truly has impact on other people's lives, this is it. That's to me, especially I always say, I've done a lot of different things. I've had a lot of different roles as a police officer, been a patrol officer, I've been a detective, I've been undercover, I've been internal affairs, all different types of things, a chief. But the most rewarding work I've ever done is being on the road in uniform, in a patrol car, answering calls for service. And it's not like it is on TV, but it is impactful. It is impactful. And most people have 1 or 2 stories. The average patrol officer has 1,000 of those stories. So that's how I would sell it.
Yeah.
You did it. You sold me.
You're in, you're in, Heather?
Send me to the academy.
Yeah, well said, Chief. So yeah, before we let you go, any words for the folks out there as we prepare for summer?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm excited for summer, right? I feel like this is a special year. I think going into it, after 2 years of COVID, even though the beaches were full the last 2 years, it isn't. I mean, I was just walking into blue collar down to Gloucester House the other day, and I was walking with my wife, and I actually reached into my pocket like, oh, do I need a mask? Like I was like, I just had that moment of thought, and I don't need a mask. I mean, people certainly can wear masks if they feel the need to do that, but I feel like this is the first summer we really have kind of let go of that, that feeling of COVID kind of always in the back of your head. And I think, with Fiesta coming, I think people are ready for a good time. And so my advice would be, everything in moderation. And I think I would just say to the public here in Gloucester, the Gloucester Police Department, we're very prepared for this summer. And we look forward to enjoying it along with everybody else.
Very nice. And I have one more random question.
All right.
City
I love the
Council
random.
is about to discuss outdoor dining again for downtown. If that's the case, are there going to be Jersey barriers back on Main Street again? I know they're mostly at Fiesta right now, or St. Peter's Square, but would that be the idea?
I don't know. That's my answer to your question. I stay in my lane, and outdoor dining is not in my lane, fortunately for me. But no, I would think that there would be, and yes, there is. I know there was an issue. I don't know if it's been corrected yet from the DPW that the barriers that we used before for the outdoor dining are being allocated to Fiesta. So whether or not it's still an issue, I'm not quite sure.
Gotcha.
So I have a question. I saw that in the paper and I thought, so does Gloucester own the Jersey barriers and they only have a certain number and they're allocated to certain places?
I'll start with, I don't know. I believe so. I believe we have so many. And then for various projects, maybe perhaps I think we lease or rent or however that works. I'm not quite sure.
So it's
Yeah,
a DPW question. So that's
released.
a conversation worth
That's a
having.
Mike Hale question.
Get Mike Hale on our next interview.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, Chief Conley, we thank you
you
so much again for your time. If you're not completely underwater, maybe we can check back with you midsummer to see how things are going with the department.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
We love talking to you.
Yeah.
Always fun.
Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.